Hi, welcome to Anything is Possible. My name is Tamara and I live at Lake Chapala in Jalisco, Mexico. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about other healthcare options. Last video I did some information on the public healthcare system here and covered pretty much everything on that. And today I'm going to cover pretty much all the other options. It may turn out to be rather a long video, but I think it's important for people to kind of get a big picture view of all of the options. So now is the time to be signing up for your Medicare Advantage plans or renewing, and you need to know what's available to you if you live here or even if you're just visiting. So I'm going to cover all of that, plus all just the medical services that are available other than the public healthcare system here, and Mexican insurance as well. Start out with the things that are of general interest to people, and then I'm going to get into the things that are specifically Medicare Advantage. And so if you get to that point and you don't want to watch the rest of the video, that's fine. You know, if you live in Canada or you don't have Medicare yet, that's fine too. If you are on FMM or you're just here on a travel visa, you can't rely on anything here, so just get travel insurance. That's basically my bottom line. It isn't that expensive, and you'll be covered while you're down here. I am on a number of the Gringo Facebook groups, and I'm really amazed at the amount of disinformation and rumors that people get when they ask questions about the various healthcare options here, specifically at Lake Chapala. There's so much misinformation and so many things that are just wrong, and I mean, I certainly believe that there are people that have had good or bad experiences, and that's fine. But a lot of this probably stems from the fact that you don't understand the system. So I want to go over all of that today so you have everything that you can look at and decide what's right for your particular situation. All of this information as of today is correct. I personally have not experienced any of it because I'm basically healthy. I mean, I have gone to a doctor a couple of times here, but I've never had a need to go any place other than when I went to San Antonio Hospital when I hurt my shoulder a couple of years ago, and I just paid out of pocket for that, although I did file a claim with my medical insurance with Mexico. People are welcome to chime in if they've had experienced one of these systems, but I'm just going to give you the facts of how they are supposed to work, how you can sign up for them, and all of that. You need to decide now, I mean ahead of time, exactly how you're going to meet your medical needs, especially emergencies, but also just everyday medical needs. So I'm going to go over the options here. There may be several reasons why you decide you want to go back to the U.S. if you actually live here and you have a temporary permanent visa. Medicare Advantage will cover your extended needs while you're in the U.S. So that's the thing. If you're in the U.S., you get a lot more coverage for all non-emergency or pre-existing conditions, or if you need physical therapy or medications or any of that sort of thing. It's pretty limited what Advantage will cover here. And also, in my own case, I'm thinking, well, you know, gosh, if I have to have surgery, I'd kind of like to probably be with friends or relatives there. A lot of my friends here are really not set up to have people stay with them, and don't really have the time or energy or even the physical capability to take care of someone that's ailing. But there's also several reasons why you might not want to go back to the U.S. First off, Guadalajara has world-class surgeons, and it's the second largest city in Mexico, and I think I'd probably get better surgery and better care here in Mexico, in Guadalajara, than I would in where I would be in the US. When you're feeling bad or you have an injury or you've just had surgery, traveling is hard, and it may not be that comfortable for you to go through the grueling thought of flying to the US and flying back, dealing with airports and everything. Although I do highly recommend, if you have had an injury, you let them know, and they can cart you around the airport and get you on your flight with a wheelchair rather than walking. So don't be stoic about that. But also, recuperation here. There's a lot of really good nursing homes here with excellent, excellent care. They're much less institutional here, with much more loving care. And so recuperating here in a nursing home is not exorbitantly expensive, and it's very caring. You'll be able to have the oversight of your local doctor that you've been seeing here in Mexico. And also, just the climate is better here. If you end up injuring yourself and going back to the U.S. to have surgery, it may be, difficult to get a flight in the middle of winter, and maybe icy walkways, terrible weather where you are, and it's kind of nicer to just to stay here in sunny Mexico. There's reasons on both sides of this. First, just the overview. Many pharmacies here, you've probably heard, have doctors on the staff, and they have offices, so you can just go to see them. Farmacia Guadalajara, Similares, and Benavides are examples. They all have doctors on staff, and you can stop by there. And if you have a head cold, or you just have a little cut or something that you need somebody to take a look at, or a couple of stitches or something, just drop by there. You do have to pay cash out of pocket, but it'll be very reasonable. And of course, the pharmacy is right there for any needs that you need. That's part of the reason they do it, I think, is because, they've got a doctor, and then you'll go next door to purchase anything that you need that he recommends you use, antibiotics or pain reliefs or whatever. The second option is, of course, that you can just self-insure. If you have enough money in savings, you can set enough money aside that you can maybe just pay for your needs right here. So the other option is, of course, to get private insurance in Mexico, and that is what I decided to do. It covers everything except pre-existing conditions. It's lifetime coverage, so once you're in, and they won't kick you out because you get too old or something. So then, of course, there's Medicare Advantage. Medicare Advantage will only cover emergencies and urgent, and through Medicare Advantage you can be seen at any number of local hospitals, and also Lakeside Medical Group. Lakeside Medical is kind of a PPO. They have their own network of providers. They work with certain hospitals here, and you pay a really nominal fee. It's like 100 pesos if you just go in to see for a doctor visit. And I'll talk more about how that works. Then there's Medicare A and B, which cover nothing. Okay, so I want everybody to be clear on that if you have just Medicare A and B and you don't have a Medicare Advantage plan, you get no coverage here at all, okay? Things you don't want to probably even consider is Medigap or Medicare supplemental plans. And that costs you quite a bit of money. There's a deductible, and there's a very low cap on coverage, which is usually around $50,000, which even in Mexico, that's not going to get you too far. And then there's international insurance plans, which can be costly. Some of them are more affordable, but still they're pretty expensive. So if you're a younger person and you don't have Medicare, I would say probably get Mexican insurance or consider using the public health care system. So of course you can combine these options. You can sign up for public health care and use it for your everyday needs. Go to one of the local Centro de Saluds and take care of anything that you need. And they will do anything else that you need too. But you have to keep it clear in your mind. If you have that, you don't want to call an ambulance and go to Rivera's Hospital, because you're not going to be covered by the public health care system at a private hospital. So you have to really have it in mind what you're going to do. And of course, go to a pharmacy doctor and pay the little bit that you need to if you have something minor. But insurance, that'll cover most things in Mexico, and still plan on going to your home country for pre-existing conditions. And you can also sign up with Lakeside Medical Group, which is kind of an all-purpose place. They deal with Medicare Advantage, but they also just have general health care. Right now they have a special going on through November that you can go and get a wellness check, and they cover all labs and everything that you need, blood tests, and so that's a really good way to go. I had a really good experience with a doctor there. They somehow managed to let me in even though I'm not a member, just you can sign up with them. It doesn't cost anything, and it leaves that as an option. You can just save up money, try and save up money, or if you have a good savings account, a medical savings account, you can tap into that and not get insurance at all. The costs for medical care here are phenomenally cheaper than they are in the US. They still can add up and they can be expensive. So the problem is a lot of people are not prepared. They don't have a plan. They don't know what they're going to do. They end up in the hospital, and if they don't have savings, and they don't have Medicare Advantage, and they don't have Mexican insurance, and they don't have, they go to the wrong hospital and they're with public health care. I mean, there's just any number of things that are wrong. But I can tell you, if you self-insure, it doesn't matter. You can go to any doctor, any place, any time, and you'll have the money. So you just need to know it can add up to a whole lot, especially if you have some catastrophic event, a major stroke that requires a lot of rehabilitation, or if you have a heart attack and you require major surgery and follow-ups. It can add up real fast. So insurance is not a bad thing. The other thing is you got to bear in mind is that you probably need to have the money in a local bank or some way to get it really quickly if you're pretty much out of it. Let me tell you, if you're really sick and in the hospital and having to deal with all of this, it's not fun. And I realized that my money's all in the US, so transferring a big chunk of money here to a hospital would probably be pretty difficult. The hospitals require first off a deposit up front, usually, and they will require payment before you leave the hospital. So it can mount up. If you're waiting for money to be transferred and you're in the hospital and the days roll on while you're waiting for this money to get transferred, it's not a good scene, because it just gets more and more expensive as the days go by and you're waiting just simply to pay so you can get out of the hospital. Not good. Also, the other biggest problem here is that you have to do all the paperwork yourself. All of the hospital bills and everything else, you have to handle it all yourself. And it'll all be in Spanish. And, it's just going to be a big hassle. So nobody's going to check to make sure you're charged appropriately. And you're pretty much on your own with the medical system here. And all the forms and a lot of the people in the system will only be speaking Spanish. So if you just had a heart attack and you're feeling very weak and miserable, it can be a pretty lonely place to be there all alone, trying to get your money transferred from the US or from Canada or wherever you're coming from, and and deal with it. So, it's okay to self-insure for the little stuff, but I would have a backup plan. So next I'm going to cover Mexican health insurance. When I got here, within a couple of months, I decided I probably should get some insurance here. So I went and looked around, and I found an insurance broker that I really like and I highly recommend. His name is Edgardo Cedeño, and he's just the nicest guy, and he will go through and find the best plan for you. You cannot have Mexican health insurance if you have an FMM or a tourist visa. So in that case, you really need to just get travel insurance. So there's some advantages to getting Mexican insurance. If your doctor knows you are paying cash and you don't have insurance, there's a possibility they'll charge you more. No insurance guy is there to hold your hand or check with the doctor and make sure you're getting charged fairly. So it'll still be far less than the US, so a lot of people, or Canada, I have to keep saying that, a lot of people don't know what they're supposed to be charged and they just pay it, and it seems reasonable, but it's still more than you needed to pay. Your insurance company in Mexico has a website, and it has a listing of the cost of various procedures, so you know up front what you're going to be charged and what to expect. So if you know you're going to go in for a particular procedure, you know right away what it's going to cost. So different hospitals charge different amounts, so you can shop around for the best price. If you're not conscious or it's an emergency, you don't really have a lot of choice. You need to give your doctor the phone number of your insurance broker, and in the case of an emergency, your doctor will contact your insurance broker, and they work together as a team. The broker handles all the paperwork for you. Of course, it's all in Spanish, as I said before, and the broker will visit you in the hospital. They'll be with you when you check out of the hospital, make sure everything is taken care of properly, and it's just peace of mind knowing somebody is there rather than you're just on your own. In my last video on public health care, I mentioned my friend that had a heart attack, and she was just felt so stranded in the hospital. She has a large network of friends, but people come maybe once or twice to visit you, but they really don't want to take time to help you plod through all of the paperwork and payment options and the headache of all of that. So it's really good peace of mind to have an insurance agent right here locally that can help you when you need help in the hospital. Basically, it's 100 million pesos of coverage is typical per event. Now, I want to explain what per event means is if, like with my shoulder, when I fell and hurt my shoulder 2 years ago, my insurance agent opened a file on that. That is considered an event. And so what happens is, if something happens and my shoulder starts getting really uncomfortable anytime in the future, and I require shoulder surgery due to that fall, that's the same event, okay? It doesn't matter when it happens. Anything that happens with regard to my shoulder is considered part of that same event, okay? So then if I fall and I hurt my knee, well, that's a different event. So that, again, it starts over again. So 100 million pesos per event, okay? That's a lot of coverage. That's really good. And it goes forever. So that knee, no matter what happens with that knee in the future, it all goes in the file, and it's all part of that same event. So it's not like every year it starts over again. That's that particular injury is considered one event, okay? And you get 100 million peso coverage. That's pretty darn good. So, the big hitch on Mexican insurance is that no pre-existing conditions are allowed. You're guaranteed coverage for life once you are enrolled. And your premiums won't skyrocket, even if you have an event that's pretty major. Everybody gets the same rates, no matter what. So every year your rates will go up some, and it doesn't really matter what's happened to you during that year. Different companies have different age restrictions, so this is one of the things you need to see an actual broker that can deal with several different companies. Some of them have a limit of 68, 64. Some have a limit of 69. And one company doesn't have any age restrictions. But in that case, you have to have an actual physical exam to prove that you're healthy, so they know what they're covering. But you can check with your health insurance agent, your Mexican health insurance agent, what's best in your particular case. I was lucky. I moved here when I was 68, just months before I turned 69, and I got with the system, and I got my Mexican health insurance. And it is not terribly expensive. There are some conditions that require a 1 or 2 year waiting period. Depending on the company, they have different ones. So sometimes there's things like knee surgery, kidney stones, gynecological problems, spinal problems, hernia, and cancer. They require a 1 to 2 waiting period from the time that you sign up. So it's good to get signed up. Do it now. Because what happens is, I just passed my 2 years period, so nothing is excluded now. So if I were to get cancer, it would be covered. So premiums can be paid monthly, but interest is charged. So I just pay one big clump all up front once a year, and I know it's coming, and you just do it every year. So it's important in this case to have a GP locally that you can rely on, and a doctor who is available, okay? A doctor needs to answer calls and emails, get back to you or the insurance broker when questions need to arise. If your doctor isn't available, look for another doctor. You absolutely must make sure your doctor has the contact information, phone number for your insurance broker. So if you have an emergency, he can call them right away. And they can find out what hospitals are in the network. Not all hospitals are covered with my insurance. There's like 5 hospitals in Guadalajara, all excellent hospitals. But those are the ones that my insurance will cover me in. So it's important to make sure that I go to one that my insurance will cover me. So again, the broker handles all the paperwork. The broker will visit you in the hospital. He'll be with you when you check out. Make sure everything is taken care of at the hospital and that you're, comfortably situated when you get back home. And, it's just good. It's good to have something like this. So I feel very comfortable having Mexican insurance. One other thing about Mexican insurance is that it will cover you worldwide. At least the plan I have will. So I can travel and it will cover me anywhere. If I go back to the U.S. or anywhere, anytime I travel internationally, I'm covered. I want to have a little word about if you are under 65 and you don't have Medicare, there are plans available that cover you internationally. One I checked on was Cigna Global. There's United Healthcare Global, and there's Atlas International. If I was planning on getting U.S. health insurance to cover me in Mexico, I would probably contact United Healthcare Global and get a quote. But I have a feeling it's going to be a whole lot more expensive than getting Mexican insurance. So That's what I would recommend, but you can do whatever you want to do. I'm just giving you that option. If you're under 65, you know, Mexican insurance makes more sense to me. Now I'm going to cover Medicare Parts A and B and Medicare Advantage. I'm not going to cover Medigap or Medicare Supplemental because those plans are so minimal and they're expensive, and it's not worth even bothering with them. So I wouldn't even consider going with Medicare Supplemental. So Medicare A and B, as I pointed out before, will not cover you here, but you need to keep Medicare A and B to have Medicare Advantage. The other thing to have Medicare Advantage, you need to have a U.S. address. What you consider your residence address can vary. Some people still have a home or some place that they own in the United States. You can use that. Of course, Medicare Advantage plans almost always have providers that they will cover within a certain range of that address that you give. So you need to consider where it is you would want to be treated if you go to the United States, because your Medicare Advantage plan will cover you in that area. So if you use a relative or a friend's address, you want to consider where that is, how easy it is to get there, and if that's something that you would want to do if you needed to go back to the U.S. for care. You are not allowed to continue your Medicare Advantage if you live outside the U.S. So you need to have that residence address, whatever you consider your residence address in the U.S., and that needs to be what you use. That's what you have to put for Social Security. That's what the address is that Social Security has. Social Security is related to Medicare, and Medicare communicates that to Medicare Advantage, so there's no way around not having them all match up. Medicare Part D is your drug coverage. It won't cover you outside the U.S. You should keep your Medicare Part A and B, and whether you keep Advantage or not is up to you. At least you should keep A and B going, because if you ever go back to the U.S., reinstating Medicare Part B is pretty expensive if you've been, especially if you've been out of the country for quite a while. They charge per year, so it's kind of retroactive. You have to pay. I'm not exactly sure, and I couldn't find it on the Medicare website, but it's pretty expensive. Whatever you need will be covered in the U.S., so I highly recommend that you just keep Medicare plans A and B going. It's a lot easier and a lot cheaper than trying to reinstate it if you move back to the United States. We all think we never move back to the United States, but you know, stuff happens. People move back all the time. I would say within 5 years, there's a large percentage of people move back to the U.S., so you just don't know. When you first fall in love with Mexico and you move here, it's different than as you grow older. And you feel like you maybe want to be near family, or you miss the change of seasons, or just the scenery of your comfort of your old locale. So I wanted to make one last comment about the Medicare Advantage. Just like with Mexican insurance, I really highly recommend you work with a broker. Even if you have an Advantage plan that you've been happy with in the past, you really don't know if it's covering you here in Mexico or how much coverage it will have. So dealing with a broker, they'll be able to find out if your plan is going to cover you here, how much it'll cover you, set you up with a plan that will work well for you here. In the description box, I give a link to a couple of videos on Mexico relocation guide with one guy that works, I think he's out of Hermosillo, but he pretty much totally works with Lakeside Medical Group. And then there is a broker here. Like I said, I went to a talk at Lake Chapala Society, and he's a broker out of Chapala, and you can actually make an appointment to go see him. So the coverage in Mexico for Medicare Advantage, some plans allow you to live here indefinitely and other plans don't. So you need to be clear on that. And now I want to talk a little bit about Lakeside Medical Group specifically and the other hospital options here. I'm not going to diss the other hospitals. The hospitals here are very good. The reason that you might want to consider Lakeside Medical Group is that they handle everything from start to finish. They will pay any provider. They're kind of a PPO, so they have people that they work with, and they pay the provider, and then they get reimbursed, Medicare Advantage. And so that's very different than if you go directly to a hospital, if you have an emergency or urgent care. You have to pay the provider up front, out of your pocket, and then you file with Medicare Advantage, and Medicare Advantage will reimburse you. So the thing of it is people ask which hospitals accept Medicare Advantage. Well, all of them will. Basically, what you have to do when you check out of the hospital, you got to get out your pocketbook and pay the hospital to get out. Okay? And so Medicare, they don't bill Medicare Advantage. That's not the way it works here. You pay. You get what's called a factura, and you have to make sure that you use a legal term. And that's true when you're dealing with Mexican insurance also. Anytime you get medical treatment, at the time you pay them, get a factura, okay? And it's a legal document that describes what it was that was done, and it has an actual legal number attached to that. So get that, and then you file that with Medicare Advantage and wait around for them to reimburse you. It could take a long time, and you'll be out of pocket all those expenses by yourself. So if you use Lakeside Medical, it is not a scam. If you have an emergency, don't call 911 with Lakeside Medical. You call Lakeside Medical. They send their ambulance and will take you to whatever hospital they're dealing with. Whenever you have an urgent care, an emergency, go to Lakeside Medical if you're a member there. And they bill Medicare Advantage, okay? You don't pay out of pocket. That's the huge advantage of Lakeside Medical. So there is nothing wrong with going to a regular hospital, but you are going to be responsible for paying the bill. I just want to make that absolutely clear, that Lakeside Medical will pay all of it. They'll handle all the paperwork for you, and they'll handle the ambulance to whatever hospital they will get you treated at, and it's just a whole lot easier to deal with them and let them handle it, and they will bill Medicare Advantage, and they take up all that slack. Now, the way that they make money is that the cost of health care here in Mexico is a lot less expensive than the U.S. So what Medicare Advantage will reimburse them for is what that procedure would cost in the United States. So they have an agreed on price for whatever procedure they had done. That's what Lakeside Medical gets reimbursed for, and that's how they make their money. They take all the headache out of filing claims. They pay all emergency and urgent care, and they absorb all the costs in the waiting period to get reimbursed. So what it is, it's 100% free to join Lakeside Medical. I'm just telling you. I'm not trying to push them, but I'm just saying when you're sick or injured and you have medical emergency, not having to deal with the paperwork, whether you have Mexican insurance or whether you go this route, it is just going to be a whole lot easier. It costs 100 pesos, which is equivalent of $5, anytime you need to just go to Lakeside Medical and see a doctor for anything, emergency or not. Like I said before, they do wellness checks, they do anything. It doesn't have to be a Medicare Advantage claim. That would be an emergency urgent care. They are there like a regular doctor's office. It's just they get reimbursed by Medicare Advantage for urgent care and emergencies. When you apply with Lakeside Medical, they will screen your Medicare Advantage plan and they'll be able to tell if it covers you here in Mexico or not. Some don't, some do. So they accept both Medicare Advantage plans, Canadian plans, and also some VA plans, so you need to check with them. I went in and talked to them, and they said everything was on the website. You know, they didn't really want to talk to me a whole lot in the front desk. I don't know if they were busy, but I couldn't find any information about the VA plans, but some things are covered. So go in and apply and see what's covered. But they will tell you what your Medicare Advantage plan will cover. And they don't sell insurance, so there's no axe to grind for them. In order to sign up with them, you have to have a government-issued ID, and they don't care what it is, you know, driver's license, your passport, your residence visa card, anything. They have hospitals that they work with all over Mexico, so you don't actually have to even live in Lakeside. Check their website. It's down below in the description box. And it tells you what cities and states in Mexico it's located and what facilities are associated, clinics and hospitals. So if they will come and deal with you wherever you are in Mexico, so if you're traveling around the country, they have 24/7 English-speaking operators. And if it's not too urgent, they'll send an ambulance to transport you to one of their hospitals, even if it's several hours away, if it's not too urgent. The last thing I wanted to cover was SkyMed, which is actually air transport from Mexico to the U.S. The seminar that I went to with the Medicare Advantage broker was talking a little bit about SkyMed, not much, but someone that in the audience had actually had SkyMed, and she goes, it was a lifesaver for them. It got them from Mexico to the U.S. in the case of an emergency. So apparently, I think it was her husband was hospitalized and needed to get back to the U.S. to be covered by Medicare. SkyMed transported him. It's kind of amazing. Their service areas are U.S., Canada, Mexico, the Caribbean, Bermuda, and the Bahamas, but they will provide transportation worldwide. So if you live in any of those areas, they provide transport services. They'll fly you, your spouse or companion, your kids, your grandkids, and even your pets home when you need to fly home for a treatment. They'll return your vehicle, motorcycle, or RV to your country. And if your illness or injury doesn't require a private air ambulance, then you'll be flown on a commercial flight. But if you need a medical escort, they will provide that if you need care while you're flying. So in a lot of cases, you'll be flown on a commercial flight rather than a private air ambulance, unless it's like a super emergency. Then they'll use the private air transport. They provide transportation to the hospital, convalescent home, rehabilitation facility, or hospice near you. They will transport your physical remains if you die, and they'll fly a companion with you on a return flight. They'll pay for that. If you're within the U.S. or within one of their provided areas and you're over 95 miles from home, they'll transport you back to your home after hospitalization. You get up to $200 for incidental expenses such as lodging, meals, or transportation. Also for organ transplant, they actually will transplant fly organs if you've been a member for over 9 months. They will transport you to the hospital where the organ transplant is going to be provided. So they will fly the organ and they'll fly you to the hospital where it's all going to get taken care of. But again, this is all if you've been a member for 9 months. So, sign up ahead of time. And they do exclude acts of God, acts of terror, extreme sports, selective surgery, a rolling while you're hospitalized, and there's a few other exceptions that they won't cover. But they have a whole lot of different plans. They have both travel insurance, they have annual insurance for people that travel worldwide for short periods of time, and then they have expatriate plans for people that stay in one location for over 6 months. Then you have to sign up for that, and it's a graduated number of amount of money it costs. And then they even have coverage for people that are over 75. It's rather expensive, but especially if you're an expat. It just depends on your age and the risk involved and the likelihood that you might need to have the transport. But apparently it's really an important thing to have especially if you only have Plan A and B. I guess some Medicare Advantage plans might cover transportation and air travel. I don't know. You need to check. There's thousands of Medicare Advantage plans, so it's important to check with your plan and find out what it covers. So thanks for watching. I hope that answers at least some of your questions and gives you some information to make a judgment. Now is the time to sign up for Medicare Advantage. If you still have Social Security, knows that you're a U.S. address. The enrollment period is now, so don't delay. Make an appointment with a broker. Go see one if you're going to do Medicare Advantage. And otherwise, you have a lot of other options here. Public health insurance. You have pay out of pocket. You use local providers for small things. Lakeside Medical Group if you have Medicare Advantage. There's a lot of different options here. Of course, public health care if you want to do that. So it doesn't hurt to sign up, have a grab bag of things that you can call on if you need to. If you have an emergency or you just have a daily something that you need to see a doctor for. Have a plan and have things set up ahead of time. So if an emergency happens and you happen to be not even conscious at the time, you have things lined up so you know what to do. So hope that helps. I look forward to seeing you in a little bit more lighthearted episode in the future. And I'm sorry this went so long, but there was a lot of material to cover. Thanks for watching. Hit a like and subscribe and take care. We'll see you next time. Bye.